And sticking with politics, he's trying to get back to Washington, D.C. Former Congressman Charles Djou is trying to clinch a seat in Congress again, and he's facing off in a rematch against incumbent Colleen Hanabusa. And joining us this morning is congressional candidate Charles Djou. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me over here.
I know you're glad you're not in Washington, D.C. right now, at least for the moment. But let me ask you this. Obviously, we are in Obama country. This is a state dominated by Democrats. So what are your thoughts, and what do you think your chances are going into the general election?
Well, I think what's important is we have a bipartisan congressional delegation. For me, it shouldn't be about Republicans versus Democrats. Indeed, in Washington, D.C. right now, you see the problem is there's too much about Republicans and Democrats. There's such a corrosive atmosphere of hyper-partisanship where everybody wants to point out blame and nobody wants to find solutions. My campaign is all about running from the center and not from the partisan extremes. And I think that's a message that sells well in here in Hawaii, and it's certainly something that heaven knows we need both in our country as well as here in Hawaii.
And what do you make of the fact that the political discourse, at least right now, has been dominated by the presidential race, the mayoral race, and rail, and the U.S. Senate race between Mazie Hirono and Linda Lingle, and your races and others have not received as much attention?
You know, that's something actually I'm okay with, because I think unfortunately with those races, what has dominated those races hasn't been a good discussion over the issues, but instead has been a very negative campaign. And it's all about what the other candidate is against and not what you stand for. And I think, and I hope, that the voters are going to be able to judge me for what I stand for. That it's time we turn around this economy, create more jobs, we begin balancing our budgets, so we make sure that the next generation isn't the first generation in American history to be left worst off.
Well, what do you consider your greatest accomplishment when you were in Congress and when you were in City Council?
Yeah. Well, let me take the City Council first, where I served for 7 years. I was very proud to have been a proponent for ethics reform, to establishing curbside recycling here in our community, and for expanding the opportunities for renewable energy on the island of Oahu. As a congressman, I was very proud of the fact that I was rated as one of only 10 moderates by the National Journal out of 435 members of the U.S. Congress. There's too few members in the center who want to work with both sides, who want to find constructive solutions. For me, I was very proud to have co-sponsored with Brian Baird, a Democrat from Washington, to try and push a floor vote on the President's bipartisan deficit commission recommendations. Should I be privileged enough to earn the people's support, that's exactly what I'm going to go back and do again. We don't need more of the extremes, we need more people in the center.
The United States has an obligation to help the Micronesian population and other populations in the Pacific, but because of these obligations, Hawaii taxpayers are also feeling a little bit of a strain, and also there is a strain on our healthcare system. Is there anything that should be done about this?
Yes, of course. Because of the Compact of Free Association, Hawaii, more so than most of the other states in the United States, has to bear the burden of providing a lot of social service programs to Micronesian citizens. I think that's unfair to the people of Hawaii. The short-term solution is the federal government needs to adequately fund the state of Hawaii to take care of this, because this is, after all, a federal mandate. But I think over the long term, we should be looking at renegotiating this treaty between the Republic of Micronesia and the United States. And instead, the U.S. government should be sending foreign aid to the government in Micronesia, let the government of Micronesia take care of its own citizens, rather than require the taxpayers of Hawaii to take care of it. Again, I think this is a perfect example of why we need bipartisan cooperation. We need a bipartisan delegation in our Congress, because that's the only way we're going to be able to effectively move the idea and this legislation forward.
Well, Charles Djou, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for
Thank you very much. I really
us.
appreciate being on KITV, bright and early in the morning.
We'll see you soon, and good luck for the rest of the next few days.
Thank you.
And Charles Djou's challenger, Colleen Hanabusa, is scheduled to join us for a live interview as well. That's coming up this Wednesday at 6:40 a.m. And to see this interview again with Charles Djou and all of our other political interviews, you can head to the top video section of our website, KITV.com. It is 6:40. We'll be right back.